I hope you all had a very nice week and a very nice May. I can't believe that May is just around the corner. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It's 10:02. And Shelley, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. Could you call the roll so you know who is here?
Barry Abrahams.
Here.
Wendy Butts. Wendy Clark will not be attending. Heidi DeWingert.
Here.
Kylie Goslin. Tim Hodges.
Here.
Steve Kidowitz.
Here.
Kathy McKinnon.
Here.
Zayla Mascara Bruno.
Here.
George Perez.
Here.
Franklin Perry will not be attending. Sarah Sanders.
Here.
Lisa Tepper Bates. Gwendolyn Thames. Greg Ugaldi.
Here.
Thank you, Shelley. We do have public comments, and Shelley, could you go over that process?
Sure. If you'd like to make a public comment, please state your name for the record. To ensure that everyone has the opportunity, comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Please note that this is the only opportunity on the agenda for the public to speak. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment? We don't hear any comments, so the public comment period has ended, and I'll turn it back over to the commissioner.
Thank you, Shelley. CEO, Executive Director's report. Nandini, do you want to do your report?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. We've just completed our first quarter in 2021, and I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight some of our strategic plan accomplishments. There's a lot more detail in the board package, but just want to take a few minutes to thank the board. Extremely grateful for your support. I want to thank the staff. Staff has been extremely engaged. We've been sharing updates with staff about how their work is fitting into the strategic plan. And I think overall employee engagement has been really high. In terms of our accomplishments, just a few minutes, I wanted to take a few minutes of your time this morning and update you. So with respect to some of the policy work that we talked about doing in the strategic plan, we've want to give a big thank you to the QAP task force board members, as well as the staff, and the public input that we received has been extremely valuable in essentially overhauling our QAP to be a lot more intentional about preservation versus new construction, and how we would expand a housing choice in Connecticut using the low-income housing tax credit program. And we're very happy with the end result that we're going to be putting out for public comment officially after the board meeting today, with your approval, of course. Earlier this year, the board approved a prepayment and preservation policy, which allows owners of multifamily affordable developments to really, recapitalize their portfolios or their loans under very low interest rate environment right now. And we wanted to be a lot more intentional about preservation. And so we feel like that was an extremely positive change that is going to allow portfolio owners and CHFA to be intentional about that. We're continuing to look at all of our programs, and specifically looking at the single family first-time home buyer program to figure out if there are ways that we should be better aligning it with our strategic planning priorities. We made some changes, as you know, to down payment assistance. Late last year, those changes were rolled out at the end of November. We provided you an update last month And since that meeting, we have rolled out a 0-point program. Our program has generally been a 1-point program, so a 0-point program provides just a little bit more flexibility to first-time home buyers who are often don't have the kind of resources that you need to compete in the market that we are experiencing today. We will continue to look at different ways that we can expand home ownership opportunities for our home buyers. We did late last month roll out a mobile manufactured home refinancing program, and we've been doing a lot of marketing, targeted marketing for folks that can take advantage of this innovative financing that allows them to reduce their interest rate, which is often in the high 6s or 7% range, to 1%. It was a very innovative partnership with Federal Home Loan Bank Chicago and CHFA, which allowed us to create this program and help extremely low income people sustainably stay housed for the next several years. We created the Opportunity Fund late last year with your approval. We have since been working on programs that can leverage those funds in partnership with DOH and other state agencies as well. We recently were awarded, and one of 5 state housing finance agencies to be awarded a Capital Magnet Fund Award, which we matched with a $3 million Opportunity Fund money as well, which we're going to be using for very low income and supportive housing units throughout Connecticut. All of these will come to you for your approval before we fund any new developments or initiatives with this money. As part of our landscape analysis last year, we realized that we have to do a lot more to strengthen our marketing and outreach efforts. And we, as a result of that, created a new department called Research, Outreach, and Marketing. And we intend to really coordinate all of those activities that were happening at CHFA in various ways in various areas, but we're really having it under one umbrella, and all of those activities are going to be happening in a much more coordinated way. The first task that the department took on was creating promotional materials for the new mobile home program. And we are now looking at how we can really increase awareness of CHFA in general, but also our single family first-time homebuyer programs in particular. We continue to work on strengthening partnerships. The QAP was one example of how we brought together diverse stakeholders in service of trying to create environmentally sustainable measures that we could incentivize in the QAP. We've created a partnerships working group that is an interagency, private-public stakeholder group that we're hoping will come back to us with some recommendations for how we can make partnerships a more frequent and regular part of our activities at CHFA. We're also working on streamlining. We've done some work on the HTCC program, and we are working with the commissioner and her staff on streamlining the developer engagement process, which was the first year of the program was last year. And so this year we're going to be taking some lessons learned, some pain points, and making it better. We continue to improve organizational capacity. We recently issued an RFP for a vendor to assist CHFA in developing a plan for our IT, a future-looking plan that will support all of our activities today and into the future. And we continue to find ways to keep staff engaged as part of improving overall internal communications. We launched a quarterly executive director newsletter to provide regular updates to staff on strategic planning efforts, training, and other news of interest. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you to the board again. Thank you to the staff. It's been an incredible first quarter. I'm hopeful that we'll just continue to make strides in achieving the goals of our strategic plan.
Thank you, Nandini, for that report. Questions for Nandini? Comments?
I do have one. I think it was a good report. And one of the things that jumps off the page, the research, outreach, and marketing department, I think it overlaps with so many of the other efforts. What we're seeing is that suggestions and opportunities are welcome, but oftentimes there's just not a synergy to be able to complete a relationship right off the bat. Some of these take work and discussion on both sides, especially from the developer's standpoint and the standpoint of getting the finances in place. But I will say that we are getting so much closer with each one of these efforts that the department, as we start working closer and really have the outreach and continue these discussions, I think you're going to see the fruit of those labors really starting to hit the ground, especially as we break out of the pandemic.
Hey, Celia, it's Tim Hodges. Just really quickly, because I do have to hop off at 10:30, and I don't know if we will actually get to it. But Nandini mentioned the QAP, and I too just want to thank the staff. You know, Terry's done an incredible job. The task forces worked well together. I'm very pleased that we took the time to reach out beyond, you know, just the board members and staff, but really kind of go out to the community and ask folks for their input before putting it out publicly. So I want to commend everyone who's worked on it. I am very hopeful and that this is going to be something that we can use for years to come, and people will be pleased with it, and it'll help us kind of reach our goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Nandini. As you mentioned, you and the staff are doing extraordinary work, and keep doing it. I know that we're not there yet, but the changes are being noticed, and a lot of people are actually making some comments, positive comments for what it was in the past. So congratulations, you're doing a great job.
Thank you for your support. Really appreciate it.
Moving on with the agenda, we have 2020 audit results, and Ron Nosek, he's going to present, or has he?
It's going to be Ron.
Okay.
So hello, thank you very much. And I'll just go over, we met earlier with the Finance Committee, Audit and Finance Committee, and I'm just going to go over the reporting results of the audit that we performed for the year ended December 31st, 2020 for CHFA. Many of you, if you've been on the board for a bit, understand, and I'll be a little bit repetitive here, but so basically the scope of the engagement that we perform, primarily we perform an audit under generally accepted auditing standards, but we're also required, due to the fact that you are a government related entity, to perform an audit under governmental auditing standards. And then relative to federal and state funding that you receive, we perform an audit under uniform guidance, formerly known as the federal single audit, and then also an audit under the state single audit relative to the major programs that are tested. So our primary audit opinion, page 1 and 2 of the audited financial statements that is on our letterhead, was issued in early April, and we've issued an unmodified or clean audit opinion on the financial statements, which basically states that in our opinion, the financial statements fairly represent the financial position and results of operations of CHFA for the year ended December 31st, 2020. Under governmental auditing standards, we're also required to evaluate the internal controls over financial reporting and gain an understanding of the compliance.
I'm good here.
To gain an understanding of the compliance requirements that CHFA has, from the most part, relative to the point that if there were a violation of the compliance requirement, it could be material to the financial statements. So we report to you relative to those two facets, and they are all contained in a single report that is embedded in the federal single audit as well as the state single audit. It's basically the same document as in both reports. And in the case of this governmental auditing standards report, there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that were detected during the performance of our procedures relative to financial reporting. And there were no violations of compliance that we would have been compelled to report to you, again, relative to financial reporting. So a clean report relative to what we refer to as the Yellow Book report. Under uniform guidance, again, formerly federal single audit, it's very much the same relative to what we're doing. We have to evaluate the internal controls over the compliance requirements relative to major federal programs, report any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses to you that we detect during the performance of those procedures, and then also directly test the compliance requirements and issue an opinion on those compliance requirements. So relative to uniform guidance, again, there were no significant deficiencies or internal controls over the controls relative to the major program. There was only one federal major program that was tested, which was your Section 8 program. So there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, and there were no compliance violations that were detected during the performance of our compliance testing. So we issued an unmodified or clean opinion on compliance relative to that program. State single audit is the same as federal single audit, with clearly the exception where our only focus is on state grants as opposed to federal grants, and again, under major state grants. So for the fiscal year, December 31, 2020, there were three grant programs that reached the level or were identified as major state programs. That was a state portfolio preservation, pre-development and critical needs program, and ending chronic homelessness programs. So again, we tested internal controls relative to the compliance requirements over those programs and directly tested the compliance requirements themselves in order to issue an opinion on compliance. And once again, we issued an unmodified or clean opinion on all three of those programs relative to compliance, and there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses relative to those programs as well. So from the perspective of often I'm asked, is it a clean opinion or a clean reporting? Yes, and in all instances, under generally accepted auditing standards, under uniform guidance, and under the state single audit, as well as under governmental auditing standards. So that basically wraps up the reporting results, if you will, relative to all of the work that we performed on the financial statements. In the slide deck that we provided management, I'm not going to take your time to go through all that, but we do identify all of the significant audit areas that we looked at and provide a relative summary to what we did and what we found. In all cases, there were no findings that would have caused us to modify our planned audit approach. And all of that is in there. If you have any questions relative to that, you can certainly reach out to us, or we could come back and clarify any items. And then finally, in the end of the slide deck, there are required communications that come from us, your auditors, to you, those charged with governance. Those were provided actually in a formal letter when the financial statements were issued. Basically, the relative purpose of those is to identify any areas in which management was showing some bias, perhaps, relative to the financial statements. Were they trying to make things look better or worse? In all cases, all the categories that we're required to report under SAS 114, there were no instances that rose to our attention that gave us any pause relative to management's intentions relative to the financial statements and the fair reporting of those financial statements. So that will wrap up what I wanted to report to you today. I'm more than happy to take any questions that you might have now or down the road if need be. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Ron. Questions?
I do have one. So Ron, when you do the audit for us, is your team also involved in auditing other parts of the state or other departments, or do you have to solely focus on us? Because I mean, that's an extremely clean report.
Yeah, so from the firm perspective, we do more quasi component units of the state of Connecticut than just CHFA. Myself personally, I am the partner on CHFA, and I'm the partner on the Connecticut Green Bank. That is it for me. There is another partner in the West Hartford office that is the partner on Connecticut Lottery. I believe those are the only 3 component units of the state of Connecticut that we perform work for. Our advisory group, the consulting group, they may reach into some other areas that I'm aware of. Yeah. At least off the top of my head, but that would be it for us.
Yeah, it's going to be a few.
All right.
Taylor, this is George.
George.
You know, I do want to commend Hasim and audit staff, because this is a very clean report. And in the finance committee, we go into a lot more detail on it. And what is explained to us about how cooperative they are and how helpful they are should be commended. Now, having said that, I also, going back to some of the comments that people said, this is a very clean report. You also need to understand what an audit is, right? Versus when the state auditors come in, they look at stuff in a lot more detail, and a lot more in depth, and that's not to take away from anything that I previously say of the wonderful work that the staff is doing. But I mean, you also got to understand what's in front of you also, right? I'm not saying this doesn't have any value. Obviously, it has a lot of value, but it's not, this is not intended to do 100% examination of anything, like when the state auditors come in and they look, say, a P cards, right? And they look 100% of the population, Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? All right, so thank you, Ron, for the presentation.
Thank you as well.
And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to send an email to Ron or Hasim, and then we will get you the answers. Finance committee has no action items. You guys didn't do any work this month?
We're taking a break.
Oh, you're taking a break. Mortgage committee.
We could tell you all about swaps and LIBOR if you want.
No. Masuda, you're gonna present the resolution for the Huntington Tower deal?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Multifamily has one resolution before you that is being recommended by Mortgage Committee. The vote in Mortgage Committee was unanimous. I would also welcome Mortgage Committee to provide any comments, and we do have staff available to answer any questions as you consider the request. The action before you is approval of a construction to permanent first mortgage loan of up to $17 million utilizing tax-exempt bond proceeds to Huntington Senior Associates. The construction portion is approximately $4.5 million, interest only at an interest rate of up to 4.51% for a term of up to 24 months. The permanent portion is approximately $12.4 million at a rate not to exceed 4.63%, payable interest only for up to 24 months before converting to a fully amortizing term of 40 years. This transaction will renovate and preserve 120 units of affordable housing serving seniors and physically disabled individuals of any age in New London. Again, with that said, we're happy to answer any questions.
May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
I'll
Heidi.
make that motion.
Um,
I'll
Heidi
second
I'll
it.
second.
Okay, I made a motion and Greg seconded. How's that?
Good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Any discussion, any questions?
Just two quick comments. One of the things that we found impressive is that they're going to do the renovations in 5-unit blocks in order not to displace families, and they do have places for them to the extent that they do have to move people. And then the other thing is, Heidi made a comment, there's 150 families on the waiting list, so that maybe we have to look to make sure that other buildings are, and other housing is provided in New London as well.
But there's obviously a huge demand, and these people seem to have a very good program. They've done a good job with this program. So maybe we can talk them into another one.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? All right, Shelley. could
Jerry
you-
Abrams,
Thanks.
Aye.
Cindy Butts, Heidi DeWinger,
Aye.
Kylie Goslin. Aye. Tim Hodges,
Aye.
Steve Kitowitz,
Aye.
Kathy McKinnon,
Aye.
Stella Mascara Bruno,
Yes,
George Perez,
Yes.
Sarah Sanders,
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates,
Yes.
and Ms. Gwendolyn Thames. Not here. Greg Ugalde,
Aye.
unanimous.
motion carries. Thank you, Mortgage Committee. Thank you, Masuda.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a resolution to, for a public hearing for the QAP. And I know, Tim, you have 1 minute, but we're gonna go through that. Terry Nash is going to present the resolution.
Thank you and good morning. You have before you that resolution to authorize a public hearing for the draft 22 and 23 qualified allocation plan for the low-income housing tax credit program. The board's QAP task force met with staff over the past several months to review and consider potential revisions to the QAP, along with work groups and discussion forums that were held to inform the work. So the result of that is the draft that's in your package. A public hearing is required by the Internal Revenue Service regulations to solicit feedback on the draft QAP from the public. With your authorization, we would hold a public hearing via Zoom on May 19th. Interested parties are invited to submit written comments from the date of the public hearing announcement through the end of May. All comments will be summarized and presented to the Board of Directors for consideration at its regularly scheduled June or July meeting. Timing is dependent on the extent of the comments and the recommendation of the board's QAP task force. There are some fundamental changes as we look to become more intentional about the way these funds are deployed. The changes to the basic threshold requirements include the new classifications of preservation and new construction. And there are changes in the way that the proposals are evaluated. So for example, under the preservation classification, there will be priorities used outside of the competitive point structure to evaluate those applications. The priorities to be used in evaluating preservation proposals include the greatest need, connection to community revitalization, expiring use restrictions or resyndication, preservation of housing that's tied to opportunity areas, energy efficiency and sustainability, and finally, the experience of the developer. In the new construction classification, the competitive points incentives will still be used to express priorities and evaluate the applications submitted. There are a total of 100 competitive points available. Rental affordability is at 31 points, with new points incentives provided to address the need for deep income targeting and expanded resident service coordination. Financial efficiency and sustainability has 25 points. There's a lot more choices offered to encourage greater energy efficiency outcomes. Local impact has increased to 18 points, with new points provided for developments that are part of a concerted community revitalization plan. Opportunity characteristic points remain the same. However, the category is reframed to utilize the newly adopted mapping tool. And then qualifications and experience has no change to points there. And the SSHP additional points are removed, as we've had them for several years, but the developments are themselves preservation projects. So as such, they will not be scored when they come in with an application. So you saw in your package the weighting. It's much the same as it's been in the past, with the real focus on rental affordability and the need for deeply affordable housing. In addition to the revisions that I've described, I can go into more detail on a high level, but you have the red line in your package and a memo that summarizes some of the changes. But I also wanted to point out that we will be considering developing a pre-application process. Staff will be convening a work group to participate in developing that process of a preliminary application for Connecticut. This work is anticipated to commence in May and to be completed over the few coming months in time for presentation at the QAP overview session, which is typically held in the early fall. So it is recommended that the board authorize a public hearing for this revised 2022 and 2023 QAP as presented. I'm happy to answer questions on the specifics or any details. I know the task force members also have great knowledge, and Mark Shelburne, who has been working with us, is also available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Terry. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution?
This is Kylie. I have a question.
Yeah,
Kylie,
can we do it on the
go ahead.
discussion? Thank you.
I'll move. So moved.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Lisa. Second. Kylie.
Yeah, just a quick question. I was a member of the QAP committee, but due to school break week, I was unable to attend the last meeting. And I just had a couple of questions that I was looking for some clarification on. And I apologize that part of that is due to my inability to attend the last meeting as part of that group. And thank you, Terry, for the thorough overview. I think there's a lot of really positive changes, and I know the group worked very hard, and as Tim noted, incorporated some good outside feedback. And I'm pleased that I feel like this QAP has a better sort of policy direction and intention behind it, which is, I think, what we were all hoping for. I had two questions though. First was on the community, I think what they're called, community revitalization plan. And I just wanted to know, and I think I raised this in one of our prior meetings, that every town is now required to produce an affordable housing plan by 2022. And so I'm wondering if it might make sense, or consideration that CHFA wants to look into, is whether we either want to replace the term community revitalization plan with AHP, or incorporate that, or make it an and/or situation, since that's going to be a new roadmap that towns are going to be providing effectively for developers on where they would like to see housing and where they'd like to see affordable housing, which I think will be really helpful. So I just wanted to flag that, not necessarily something that needs to be fixed now, but something I want to make sure the board is aware of, that that's a legislative requirement that comes due next year, and many communities are working on those affordable housing plans, or starting to do that now. My second question was just about As many of you know, I have an interest in the high opportunity area, and I know we had some conversation as a group about really trying to more intentionally incentivize that. And I thank DOH and CHFA for doing some good work on creating the new opportunity map. And I know we had some conversations with Mark, the consultant who I know is on, about possibly increasing those high opportunity points more. And there was some proposal and some numbers that had those at a higher level. So when I read through the packet that came out on Friday, I was a little surprised to see that we ended up in the same place with the opportunity areas, despite sort of all the conversation that we've had about trying to promote housing choice. And so I know while we increase some of those local impact components, which I think weigh more heavily on producing more housing in areas where we already have a lot of it. And there's been a lot of conversation around race equity and desegregation, but also providing more housing choice in high opportunity areas. I was hoping that we might increase those points a little bit. So I just wanted to ask sort of where the committee ended up on that and where the discussion was around that particular point.
Did you see, I know we sent an email and it was late last week, so you might not have seen it. But I think we sent a revision that incorporated comments from that last meeting. And I'm going to look through my notes too at the same time. I think a lot of what you're mentioning, we had discussed, and in terms of the rollout with the new map, we hadn't considered changing points. It was still heavily toward the high end and few to the bottom end. You remember how we used to last year? I think everybody could get, every town, 169 towns could get points, all but one. Now it's, if you have certain features, you're at 0 points, then 2, but then it jumps. So from medium, high, and very high is the real points awards. So it does provide incentive to get into areas with greater opportunity, but to your point, it hasn't increased them. And if that's something that you'd like to bring up, I don't know if task force members on have any recollection of a discussion increasing the points on that last meeting. I think it was April 15th.
I seem to recall some numbers that Mark had, it may have been a document Mark produced or something else that were a little higher. So in the red line I looked at, looked like the points were the same as to the prior QAP. So maybe there was a shift in points in what you're describing, and but that at least the red line, maybe I misread it, but that's what I saw was that it's the same, but we added points in the local impact area. So the way I read it, it has a new opportunity map, and maybe we weighted them more highly for certain communities that didn't necessarily, maybe again, I misread that. I'm just concerned that it didn't actually change, or I think what we were, at least what I was hoping to see was a slightly more incentive for doing development in higher opportunity areas, since so much of CHFA's work has been in
So Kylie, I think that
cities.
Although you didn't see increase in points, I mean, we look at all the points. We also decreased some points. So overall, we reduced some of the other points. And in the total, actually, is less than what it was in the past.
Okay.
So
I'm not going to hold this up, but there will be more time for conversation later. I was just sort of curious as to where that conversation was. And again, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I don't want to waste everyone's time if folks are prepared to move forward with the hearing. And like Terry said, I think there'll be more opportunity for conversation. But thank you, Commissioner. That was helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Kylie. Any other questions?
I just wanted to speak in favor of, I think, Kylie, what you're proposing, which is just to make sure if we can, and Terry, I don't know if we're too late to do this, but if we can include a reference to the affordable housing plans, I think that's a great idea. And I think we would have done that if we just missed that. So Kylie, I'm sorry that you weren't there for that, but can we do that at this juncture? I would like to think that there is no negative to that and only a positive to including that.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. I think the community revitalization plan concept is probably mirrored in the AHP, which was to include housing as part of the broader repositioning of an area, that's been identified by an organization as needing growth and development. So, and if the AHP is doing the same thing, then it's not too late, certainly. And we have a comment period that other changes may occur too, but it's not too late to add or if you wanted to do that.
You need a motion, or how could we move that forward at this juncture? What's the best way?
Commissioner?
Do we want to make a motion adding that within the motion? The legal, where are my legal people?
Terry, we need Terry.
Where is Terry?
You can do and adopt it with a direction to revise and include it in there. Adopt it as amended.
All right, so Lisa, you want to make that motion?
I so move what Terry said.
So there is, Commissioner, there is a motion on the floor, so somebody can withdraw that for now. We'll put a new motion out there to amend it. We'll approve that, and then we'll go back to the public hearing motion.
Okay, so did you get that, Terry?
But you can
So-
simply amend what's in front of you.
What was that? Sorry, couldn't hear.
You can simply amend what's in front of you. Simply say, I move to amend the motion to include X, Y, Z. You could
So
amend
I
it.
move, thank you, George. I will move to amend the language to include reference to the affordable housing plans.
Thank you, Lisa.
And I'll
May I have a
second it.
Any more discussion or questions? Hearing none. Shelley?
The seconder has to agree to that too. So now remember, the motion is for a public hearing and an amendment.
So the motion is for the public hearing and the amendment on the QAP.
No, we're amending a motion in front of you. Now, if that passes, then we move the main motion as amended.
Okay,
Trust me, I did this for 12 years as president. of the board.
I know, Commissioner. And thank you. All right, so Shelley?
Yes. Jerry Abrahams?
Right, so I'm voting on my original amended motion, correct?
No,
Yes.
you're voting on the amendment to the motion.
I'm voting on the amendment of the motion, okay.
Bond, you get it or not?
Yeah. That,
You know, you do
that
bonds.
understood.
I'm the opposite. They put me ahead
Can
in that.
somebody's be on mute? Somebody's talking. Okay.
I vote,
Jeffrey.
okay, my vote is aye.
Okay.
Heidi DeWinger?
Aye.
Kylie Goslin?
Aye.
Tim Hodges?
I think he left.
He left.
Yeah.
Steve Kitowitz?
Aye.
Kathy McKinnon?
Aye.
Salem Mascara Bruno?
Yes.
George Perez?
Yes.
Sarah Sanders?
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates?
Yes.
Greg Ugaldi?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Shelley. Motion carries. Thank you, Terry, very much. Thank you to all the members of the task force. Dedicated a lot of time to get to this point, and I think that you almost feel very happy for what we have done so far. And good luck with the public hearing, Terry.
And now you have to vote on the main
Thank you so
motion as
much.
amended.
Yeah.
Commissioner, okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So do I do the motion and a second or just vote?
You simply say, any more discussion? Seeing none, you say
Any
all
more
in favor.
discussion? Hearing none. Shelley?
Okay, Jerry Abrahams?
Aye.
Heidi DeWinger?
Aye.
Kylie Goslin?
Aye.
Steve Kitowitz?
Aye.
Kathy McKinnon?
Aye.
Salem Mascara Bruno?
Yes.
George Perez?
Yes.
Sarah Sanders?
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates?
Yes.
Greg Ugaldi?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Your 20 years are very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. So as you may have heard, Connecticut is going to be receiving $123 million for a homeownership program to help those that have been affected by COVID, those homeowners. And CHFA is, with the approval of the board, we will be administering these funds. So Hazin is going to present a resolution for the Connecticut Homeownership Assistance Fund Program.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm seeking approval of the reference resolution that would permit CHFA to administer the State Homeowner Assistance Program. The program provides an ability for qualified homeowners who were or are impacted by COVID-19 to receive much needed mortgage payment assistance. By way of background, the federal government enacted the American Rescue Plan Act on March 11 to help each state in the union to mitigate distress and financial hardship caused by COVID-19. One of the many programs within this act is the establishment of the Homeowner Assistance Fund, or HAF, in the Department of Treasury with a funding of about $10 billion. According to the act, each state's allocation will be weighted based on the number of unemployed individuals and the number of mortgages who are delinquent. On April 14, Treasury issued its guidance on the HAF and allocated $123,136,792 to Connecticut. Additionally, the funding will come in 2 phases, an initial funding of 10% and a subsequent funding of 90% subject to meeting all conditions laid out by Treasury. Due to CHFA's expertise in administering EMAP and having managed the Federal Emergency Homeowners Loan Program in 2010, DOH reached out to CHFA to see if CHFA could administer the program on behalf of the state. Based on CHFA's review of the HAF guidelines, CHFA plans to roll out a pilot by using the initial funding, or about $12 million, to address and provide relief to homeowners most urgently in need, such as homeowners in serious delinquency or facing foreclosure. Concurrently, CHFA has begun the initial work on a more comprehensive plan where such a plan would involve various stakeholders and partners for the remaining 90%. According to the guidance, Treasury would like states to use data in designing the program, prioritize homeowners who receive federally insured mortgages or loans from tax-exempt bonds or programs that target low and moderate income borrowers. I will be happy to answer any questions the board may have about the resolution.
May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second, this is Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi. Questions?
I have a
Discussion.
question.
Yeah.
So Hazim, this is a huge allocation, which sounds like, although we have expertise, a lot of work. Does this mean you're going to need additional staffing?
Yes. This is a huge undertaking for CHFA, and we will be reaching out and procuring assistance as many as possible to ensure that we can roll out the program as efficient and the best we can.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Does the grant allow to hire staff, or it's only for the direct assistance?
It does allow staff to hire temporary staff or pay for expenses. The guidance provide an ability to allocate or to use up to 15% of the total allocation. However, before we can do so, we do need to provide Treasury the plan with the budget. So they do want to see everything before they would remit the remaining 90%.
Yeah.
But I think
So
it's
this is-
important for the board to know that there is some available funding for staffing, even if it's only on a short-term basis, during the duration of the program.
Right.
Yeah.
Jerry?
So the other 90, so that you'll spend 10% of the pilot, but it'll be up to Treasury, presuming that they accept the plan, then Treasury authorizes the other 90%.
That's correct. And that's why when it comes to how we're approaching this program, we've been communicating with other states and also our trade association, because everyone is trying to get it right. The problem is when it comes to Treasury guidance, they only touch at a high level, and we're trying to read along the lines. And we want to make sure that what we present to them is something that's palatable, instead of we present to them and then we roll it out, and then lo and behold, they change their mind.
Right, and effectively what's happening here is CHFA is acting as essentially an agent for federal resources, effectively, right?
Well, we're acting as an agent on behalf of the state.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the allocation is to the state, yes.
Understood, okay.
Any other comments or questions? Shelley?
Jerry Abrahams,
Aye.
Heidi DeWinger,
Aye.
Kylie Gosselin,
Aye.
Steve Kitowitz,
Aye.
Kathy McKinnon,
Aye.
Salem Mascara Bruno,
Yes.
George Perez,
Yes.
Sarah Sanders,
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates,
Yes.
Greg Ugaldi,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Shelley. And just as an FYI, give you a brief update on the rent relief. The state receives $223 million for rent relief. We also receive admin fees. We can use up to 10%. The program for the homeownership can use up to 15% for admin. So we are right now, we have been able to get out about $1.2 million. I forget exactly the numbers of applicants that have been approved, but we have an automated system, and we're able to engage the housing counseling agencies to do the underwriting, but we also have engaged several accounting firms, and we have increased, the goal is that we're going to increase up to 200 people doing underwriting and process. The automated system is from taking applications to payments. So the next couple of weeks, we are going to ramp up to probably 150 to 200 people doing underwriting. So the only way that we could do this, although we were able to hire few people, but the time that takes to hire people, it was to contract out, especially with accounting firms that have done this type of work, and they have the detail that we need to, because Treasury has some very strict criteria. But nevertheless, the goal is that within the next couple of months, we're going to be able to deploy significant resources to those rentals. So anybody has any questions or not? All right. Masuda, we talked at a couple of meetings ago, people wanted to have a little more information about the 4% low-income housing tax credit and the rate changed. So Masuda has prepared a report to go over, and this is more as an informational, and if you have any questions after Masuda presents the report, that'll be great. Masuda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so this is a brief summary regarding the impact of the 4% minimum fixed rate that was passed by Congress as part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act. Can you scroll down a little bit for there you go, thank you. So as you know, this was welcome news because the industry has been asking for the 4% rate to be fixed for many, many years now. So, and this is particularly useful at a time where there's significant demand for affordable housing. It's compounded by the challenges due to COVID. So we're all really happy and excited about the passage of the 4% rate. There are some Treasury's guidance is very specific. They are looking for developments to be placed in service after December 1st, 2020, as well as if the development has tax exempt bonds, bonds would have to be issued after December 31st, 2020. According to estimates that Novogradac had published recently, between 2020 and between 2021 and 2030, they anticipate that 130,000 additional units could be added simply by the passage of the fixed rate. In Connecticut, that estimate is around 1,300 additional units. Just as you know, by way of summary, 4% LIHTC can be used for acquisition of existing buildings, new construction, as well as substantial renovation. And in Connecticut, although we primarily use 4% for acquisition and renovation of existing affordable properties. So this example is just showing you the impact of the 4% rate. So this is looking at a development with 10 million in eligible bases. The affordability is 80%. So as you can see, with the credit percentage at 3.07%, this development would have generated about $2,284,080 in equity, whereas under the 4% present value, we're getting an additional $600,000 of additional equity for this particular development. So it is a powerful tool that is now available to the affordable housing industry. Can you scroll to the next slide? So that being said, there are still a lot of questions that are being asked, mainly as far as, what does this mean in terms of the amount of equity that's being generated. So for example, Novogradac had prepared some estimates, assuming the same issuance levels for 2021, the 4% floor will generate approximately 3.3 billion in tax credits for 2021. This is exclusive of the 1.2 billion that's being made available for the disaster tax credit. So it is creating a supply in the market. There may be limited investor demand. And so as a result, part of what we're seeing is a reduction in equity pricing anywhere by 3 to 5 cents. And so that's something we're continuing to watch just to see how the investors are going to respond in the near term. And then again, kind of how this additional equity is going to be absorbed in the market, whether there will be additional reduction in pricing. So that is to be determined. The other thing that we're seeing is just additional investor and syndicator scrutiny. Certainly HFAs are doing this as well, just to seeing how is this additional equity being used. Is it reducing deferred developer fee? Is it being used to make additional improvements to the property? Is it reducing soft funding in the deal? So as part of that analysis, those are all questions that are being asked, and as those deals are getting sized, CRA deals are continuing to move favorably. One of the things that we're hearing, although we have not really had large transactions in Connecticut, that for some of the larger deals, there could be limited investor appetite, especially if those deals previously were purchased by a direct buyer. So those deals may have to go to more of an economic investor who's really looking for yield. So for example, if you had a $30 million deal, now this is 40 million, again, that may kind of limit the investor base for the larger transactions. There are still a couple of areas that we're hoping to get guidance from the IRS. In CSHA and a lot of the other advocacy organizations have submitted letters to the IRS in terms of getting clarification. Some of those areas are really around how to treat a project where bonds were issued in 2020, but they have not fully dispersed until 2021. So can you still use the 4% floor? Or in situations where some HFAs do supplemental bond issues or not supplemental, but a split issuance. So, maybe they're drawdown bonds and some bonds were issued in 2020 and then some are going to be issued in 2021. Like, how does that going to work? And so right now, a lot of the housing and finance agencies that administer LIHTC, they're taking more of a conservative approach in terms of, how we are interpreting the Treasury regulation, but as guidance is issued, obviously we'll come back and kind of take a look at to see what these changes ultimately mean. But overall, this has been very positive for our customers in Connecticut. And then some of the other provisions outside of this particular legislation is the tax credit improvement, the Affordable Housing Tax Credit Improvement Act that was reintroduced. And then there are some provisions in there to also increase the housing credit volume cap by 50%, and then lower the bond finance threshold from 50% to 25%. So if those two components are passed later this year, again, that would be very positive news, and it would certainly reduce the pressure on tax exempt bonds that we're seeing right now. So with that said, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Masuda, for that very well detailed explanation. Questions for Masuda? Okay, thank you, Masuda.
Thank you.
Our last item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Shelley?
Abrahams,
Right.
Heidi Dewinger,
Aye.
Kylie Goslin,
Aye.
Steve Kitowitz,
Aye.
Kathy McKinnon,
Aye.
Salem Mascaro Bruno,
Yes.
George Perez,
Yes.
Sarah Sanders, may have dropped off, Lisa Tepper Bates,
Yes.
Greg Ugaldi,
Yes.
unanimous.
Motion carries. Thank you, Shelley. And a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Everybody, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Well, have a great day. We'll see you at the next board meeting in May.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank
you.
you.